even if you haven't applied for a job recently, you've probably heard that competition is fierce. A lot of people are looking for what they hope is just the right position. There are absolutely no shortage of people out there telling you how to make your resume, how to format it. We're going to hopefully cut through the noise a little bit today. Ben, you and I have both hired developers before. I want to hear your take. And there are a million things I'm sure you could say, but when you're looking at a resume, are there any particular things that like really make it stand out for a potential applicant? Something that actually makes you go, oh, this person, maybe it's they took the time to read the job description. Maybe it's they did something else. Are there other things that stick out to you?
Yeah. So when you're hiring, you see so many resumes, you have to dig through a lot, and they all kind of blend together with a few exceptions. And you want to be that exception, right? So you want some hook in your resume that makes someone pay attention to you or set your name aside as, yes, I'm going to follow up on this one. So a few ideas for that would be showing some personality. Like make the person who's reviewing your resume curious about what kind of person is behind this. Try to cut through what biases they might have about your experience or your name or your location, and find some ways to communicate. Like, this is a real person behind it. They have some interesting volunteer experience, or that's not a job I would have expected a person from this background to have. Find a way to demonstrate, like, this is a unique person behind this resume.
Yeah. And I think one thing I want to say, and this kind of comes with, I think you would agree with this comes with the caveat of what we're saying is assuming that you are not like at the edge and you just need a job. You will take, we're assuming hopefully that you are not in a position where you will take any job humanly possible, because if that's the case, you know, if you are assuming you're not in that position, then what you want a position where you can show a little bit of personality. I think for me, a big thing is when I'm reading a resume is, did this person try in a weird way, right? Like, is there that spark of like, oh, because listen, sometimes you just want the job because I need a paycheck. That's that's totally fine, right? This is you are paying me to do a thing, and that's a thing. But like when you're reading a resume, you want to hope that this just wasn't like I hit the easy apply button on LinkedIn and I'm just spamming a million things humanly possible, but they read it. Maybe they actually looked at our company and they saw something interesting. Ideally, if they list, I mean, this also kind of comes with the cover letter too, but it's like, you know, if it's in the job description, you should try to talk about it. And if there's a requirement in the job description, mention it, or figure out how to translate it. Yeah. Something like that. Exactly. I definitely have it's funny. This is supposed to be a, what sticks out? What sticks out sometimes in an unusual way? Not unusual. It's just like, if you're trying to and this doesn't apply to designers, I would say, but like for developers, if you are trying to make your resume kind of like flashy, so stuff like the graphs on the side where like the sort of chart, like skill chart where you're sort of ranking yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, like how good are you at these different things? That sticks out like not in a bad way, but I look at that and I always go, how do I know? You could be the world's harshest critic and you could say, and I could be like, oh, this person's really down on themselves. They gave themselves a 3, but they're actually really good. Or you could be pumping yourself up. I always look at that, and that's kind of like visual. That's like almost off-putting. It's kind of like visual noise in a way where I'm like, I'm actually just trying to like throw that aside and kind of look at the rest of the resume to understand the person.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. To piggyback off that, I would talk about results. Forget a graph. Okay. Talk about results. What did you do?
So not just like, so when people sorry, go ahead.
I don't want to hear like a checklist of I use this technology, this technology, this technology, this technology. I'd like to hear, what did you build? How did it affect users? How was it integrated into your company? Who did you work with? How did you make a difference in your position? So give me some results and find ways to make it impressive. Like, you don't have to blow smoke, but you should have at least a few things on your resume where I can see, yeah, this person was part of something that created an impact, even an internal impact at this company.
Right. Yeah, right. If you're talking about like, okay, great, you were a Laravel dev for 3 years. What did you do for those 3 years? You know, and let's talk about that.
Difference?
Yeah. And how the difference is hard though sometimes, right? I mean, because depending on if you're really early in your career, or maybe you're at a very large company that maybe isn't, you know, you're sort of pushed off in the corner and you're just kind of working on whatever, but hopefully there's something in there. But actually, that's another thing I wanted to mention, which is things outside of just your professional experience, right? So if this is a junior position or an entry level sort of developer position, maybe you've only worked in a couple places, maybe you weren't trusted to do a whole lot, or maybe you were still learning. Anything else, we're talking about sort of like, what did you accomplish? What did you actually do? It's like, if you're gonna list things like personal projects, that's great, but like, what was the, oh, I built this so that I could teach myself how to use Filament for the first time because I was interested, or, oh, I wanted to, I had this old site and I was supposed to take care of it and I left it alone for a long time and I decided, you know what, I'm super enthusiastic about Tailwind, but I'm going to use this project as an example of like, what's it like to convert an old site to a new site? Like, whatever it is, you should, what it boils down to? It's storytelling, right? Resumes are, you're telling a story about yourself, and it should be relatively honest, but it can be polished, right? And it's an optimistic take, but it's a story. And that's what I'm looking at in a resume. Is like, what story is this person trying to tell me?
Something like that would definitely give me an idea that someone was capable of personal development and motivated by personal development. And it would make me feel more positive about their ability to backfill any skills that were lacking elsewhere in their resume. If you show me a resume that is missing a third of what I'm looking for in a developer, and then another one that's missing the same third but shows, oh, this person has tried 4 different technologies just so they could learn it for the purpose of development, I'm much more inclined to look favorably on the person who's looking to grow, who is showing me they're curious, they have potential to grow into the areas that I need them to grow into.
Yeah. Ben, you got anything else you want to cover on this?
I love it when people share work experience that's kind of outside of development. So don't be afraid to show a diverse range of work experiences. If you worked in a restaurant or a bank or a nonprofit or whatever, I'm not put off by that as long as I think like, yeah, there's enough overlap that this person could do the work I need. That can demonstrate an ability to work with people in a unique way. It can demonstrate a diverse background that is going to backfill something on my team. It gives me something to talk about or something that I'm curious about, honestly.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to show kind of out of lane work history, as long as it's not the entire history. That's the only thing. Like, there's still got to be some decent overlap where you have some qualifications for the position, but find ways to demonstrate like, this is how that affects, or that's how I can use this experience to improve your team because I have an interesting work history.
Yeah. And honestly, I would encourage people to think creatively, but also like think bigger about like how these things might connect, right? So if you're trying to be in a position where maybe for the first time you would have to either interact somewhat directly or respond to feedback from customers as a developer in a way that you've never done before, okay, but if you have experience in your resume somewhere, which is like, oh yeah, actually I worked, the front desk at this like hotel for like, 3 summers in college or whatever. It's like, oh, so you've dealt with the public,
right?
And you survived,
how to communicate in some
and you
like
didn't go running, and you like, those are super important skills. Like if you can handle working like front of house at a restaurant successfully for a long period of time, if you're also a developer, you can probably talk to the customers then, right? You could probably interface with them. You can hopefully have empathy because you've dealt with that sort of thing. Like those are all transferable skills to me.
100%.